Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Infuse Your Future podcast, where we bring together people and ideas that make the world a better place. I'm your host, Carla Pursnani. I'm really excited to welcome today's guest, Vivian Campbell. She's an author, speaker, and she's created her own consulting business to help inspire a new leadership. Her business is Vivian Campbell Coaching, and today she's going to talk to us about the skills of leadership and how we can each be a better leader in our own lives. So without further ado, welcome, Vivian. How are you today?
I am fabulous. How are you?
Great.
Wonderful.
Why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself and what you do and what you're passionate about?
Sure. Let me ask you this. Do you know how sometimes employees get promoted into management, but they're never trained on how to lead a team of people? Well, what I do is I come in and I customize training programs that will give them the skill set to lead, communicate, inspire, and motivate a very productive and strong team. And that's what I do. And I love doing it because I can see the change in the leader and in the team. And it's just amazing. So I love to go out and do that in companies.
That is great. And what makes you passionate about leadership?
If I can share a quick story with you, actually very lucky, right? That my business allows me to start every morning with a little exercise, meditation, prayer, and of course, a great green smoothie, right? But I remember back when it was my first time becoming a manager. I was so excited. I was gung ho and just ready to take on a team and do great things for a company. I was a good employee, so I was doing great things on my own, but now I wanted to do, or I had been promoted. They saw the potential in me, and now I had a team. So now I'm like, oh my goodness, we're going to do even more great things in the company. But my challenge was I didn't actually know how to be a great manager. I was a great employee, but I never learned how to be a great manager. And so much so that it got really, really bad. And some of the employees on my team actually went to HR to complain about me. I couldn't believe it. I was called in by HR, and it's like, you're too hard on your team. You've got to ease up, and you have to treat your team better. And I'm thinking, I can't believe this. It was such a hard pill to swallow. I was so upset, but I immediately went home. I started reading books. I kept thinking back to great managers, leaders, VPs that I worked for. And then I started mimicking what they did. Everything I learned, I would implement it right away because I was so crushed that my team members went into HR to complain about me and I got called in. And I have to tell you, I get so focused on something and I was in it to win it. Shortly after that, I think like within about 2 months, I became the manager that everybody wanted to work for.
Wow.
People had fun, they learned a lot, and we really did become that department that helped everyone else in the company. Like people would just go to us, even if it had nothing to do with our department. But I became so passionate going, yeah, I was a great employee. You promoted me. You gave me all this other work to do, but you never taught me how to be a manager. And I had to go do it on my own. And so I thought I would never want anybody to feel like that because it really is a horrible feeling, if you can imagine.
Gosh, yeah, I can imagine. You know what I love about that story is that so many people would have come out of that experience with a bad attitude, blamed the employees, not looked inward,
Mhm.
because you looked inward and you're like, that's not who I want to be. I'm hearing this feedback from my environment and I'm going to make changes. Whereas to me, right there, it tells you that you're a leader. Because if you're not a leader, you're going to go home and you're going to gripe and you're going to complain about these employees that how dare they, say anything to you. But you went and you solved the problem and it only took you 2 months.
When I get called into some companies, I do see that type of leader, right?
Yeah.
And we learn on our own, but we also learn from our leaders, right? And I shared with you, like, I was mimicking some of the great leaders I had the opportunity to work with, but some people pick up the habits from horrible leaders. And they're like,
Uh,
"Yeah, my leader used to yell, and man, people were afraid of that person, and but they got the work done. So that's how I'm gonna be." Right? So people do mimic their leaders, whether their leaders are good leaders or bad leaders,
yeah,
right?
good point. So tell me, what were the qualities of the leaders that you mimicked that helped you become such a great leader yourself?
What I find that is super important is communication, really checking in with your team, finding out what's going on with them, communicating with them, and letting them understand the big scope of a project rather than just their small piece of the project. If you're really trying to build a cohesive team, it's important that everybody understand the big picture of whatever project it is that you're working on. And so for me, the biggest thing that I share with people is communication and explaining the why behind why you're doing what you're doing. And, one of the things I have to share with you that when I go into companies and train, this thing that sets me apart from my competitors is that my competitors start with the how. We're going to teach you how to do this. But I actually start with the why. I feel that when people understand the why, then the how is easy because now they understand why they're doing something. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And maybe you can kind of explain to people what your business is and what you do and why leadership is such a crucial role in your business.
I get called in when productivity is suffering, right? And the leader of that department or that company, they don't understand why. Like, we have all the people we need, they have all the resources. Like, why aren't we as productive as we can be? Why is morale low? Right. And kudos to those owners and division heads that want to do something about the problem, right? Because a lot of times in some companies, unfortunately, they know that there's a problem, but they don't want to spend the time or the energy to fix the problem, right? So, what I do is I come in, I find the root cause of the problem, and then I start from there. I don't come in and do superficial training. We need to find out what's going wrong because most oftentimes it's really just a lack of communication. This one person in this department needs something a certain way, or they need something that they're not getting. And now they're frustrated. And now these departments are in conflict. And it's really just getting to the root of the cause. And a lot of times you just need somebody from the outside with fresh eyes that they can see it. A lot of times the managers who are in the companies, they're in it. So they don't see it or they don't take the time to step out of it and give it a bird's eye view. And I know these things sound super simple, but you would be surprised at how many companies just don't do it and they're not aware of it.
That is so true.
Sometimes you'll get people who've been in a company for a really long time, and then you'll get some people who are very new to the company. And so you get a lot of conflict with that, right? This is how we've always done it. And so whenever that happens, I get everyone together. I share grandma's ham story. Have you ever heard this story?
I think I have. I'm gonna
Okay.
let you tell it.
So, and I'm sure this story has all of its iterations from everybody who shares it, right? So here is mine. So, a couple, it's during the holiday season. The wife fixes this ham for her family. She gets the ham, she cuts off the end of it, she puts the end in the refrigerator, she makes the ham. The husband enjoys it and he says, your hams are so fantastic. I just have to ask you, why do you cut off the end of the ham? And she said, well, that's how my mother makes it. That's how my grandmother makes it. And he goes, well, why do you cut off the end of the ham? She goes, I don't know. Let's call my mom. So they call her mom and she goes, Mom, we're talking about the great ham and, why we cut off the end. And she said, well, that's how your grandmother used to make it. That's why I make it that way. And that's why I taught you how to make it that way. So they call the grandmother and they say, we have a question for you. We're using your ham recipe. Why do you always cut off the end of the ham and put it in the refrigerator? And the grandmother just started laughing and she said, I cut off the end of the ham because my pan wasn't big enough. And that, when I tell that story in a corporate setting, it's like a lot of the old timers, they've just been doing the same thing over and over and over again, and they don't even know why they're doing it that way. It's how they were taught when they started in the company, and that's how they teach everyone who comes in after them. But you don't know why you're doing it that way. And there could be a better way. When you give analogies like that, people start understanding. So, would you be open to learning a new way?
And I
I
love how
think,
you took it upon yourself to, because so not only did you go out and educate yourself on how to be a
mhm,
good leader, but then you create this company to teach
mhm,
other people how to be great leaders, which is
absolutely.
amazing because probably a lot of the people that you're talking about with the miscommunication and
Mhm,
the unwillingness to take on new ideas, to be innovative or inspirational is lack of positive leadership
mhm,
because they probably weren't taught how to be a manager because it is a very different skill to be a manager versus an employee, CEO, CFO, associate partner, director. These are all very different roles. And unless someone teaches you how to do it, you don't necessarily know how to do it. I mean, we're not all just born with this innate knowledge of how to do this leadership. So I really want to
absolutely.
commend you on that.
Oh boy, thank you. I've shared with other colleagues and every time I meet someone and of course I start talking about this, I am very passionate about it. I always start off with, do you know how an employee gets promoted to be a manager but they're never trained? And their heads go, mm-hmm, yep, something's not working out. And I give them my card, tell that company to call me. But it happens more often than not, which is what's really sad. When people are promoted into management, they're told, these are your new responsibilities. These are the new reports that are due. These are the new meetings that you need to go through. Let me show you this new system and give you your access, right? And they think that's the training. Sure, that is the training for and the new responsibilities you have, but that's only part of the training. The other part of the training is, how do you manage people? How do you hold them accountable? How do you communicate? How do you inspire? There are so many different parts of leadership. I mean, we could be here talking for hours, right?
Hmm.
Um, but that's not part of the training. And so every time I walk into a company, I always ask, can you show me what your training looks like? And the outline is all about the job, but not about the management or the leadership of people.
And how long is your program? You have a management training program,
Yes,
correct?
I'd love to do 8 weeks with a company, and then they can let me know if they want to continue it. But my goal when we come in is that you start seeing results after the first week.
Awesome.
Because there are small, simple things that we can start right away. And as
And
soon
what do
as
you do when what do you do when you come up against certain people in leadership that just they like it the way it is, they don't want to make a change, whether it's a confidence issue, an ego issue, a company has hired you to come in, make these changes, and one or more leaders or one or more people in leadership positions say, I don't need it. I don't want to.
of
I'm fine
course,
the way I am.
and trust me, that happens. Not what if, that actually happens. And so it's having a deeper conversation. It's all about building rapport and trust. and in a quick amount of time. I tell whoever has hired me in, and it's usually the head of HR or the head of the company, right? Because they're the ones that have the problem. And so I'll dig deeper so that we can find whatever the root cause is. Is the root cause you're afraid to change? You don't know how to change? I let people know, well, I'm actually here to help you with that, right? I'm not here to take your job. I don't want your job. I'm actually here to help you become better than you already are. I'm here to help you build a stronger team and be a true inspiration to your team. It's a deeper conversation with them. And then at some point, I might need to get the head of HR or the head of the company in because I'm keeping them informed of how the training is going and saying, here's where we are. What would you like to do with this? I have tried A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and these usually work with everyone, but we have someone who might be really set in their ways. So, how would you like to proceed? Because at the end of the day, the call is up to the owner of the company.
Right. What size companies do you work with?
I love to work with medium to large size companies. I do get called in sometimes by small companies, and if I do have room, I'll go ahead and work with them. Absolutely. But it's typically medium size. I'm starting off with about 300 employees.
That's great.
Mhm.
I'm curious. To me, if I had a business like this
Mhm.
and there were issues, that would be my first priority, would be to solve this, would be to create a business where my employees love coming. I almost never have to hire new people because everybody loves it so much. And yet, as you know, especially living in the US, all we talk about is corporate toxic culture. So for me, it's hard to understand why it's taking so long for these changes to happen, for companies to hire people like yourself to come in and create an environment where people love it, never want to leave. Why do you think it's taking so long for companies to make these changes?
That's a great question. And I have a wonderful network of friends out networking and meeting new people. And I will get people who will come up to me and say, that company can totally use you. You need to go in there. And they'll describe a horrible customer experience. And I said, thank you so much for making me aware of that company. Three things need to happen in order for me to actually get hired. Number one, the decision maker needs to recognize that there's actually a problem. Number two, they need to want to fix the problem. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you just need somebody from the outside to come in and take a look and then share some knowledge with the team. The third thing is they have to want to pay to have the problem fixed, right? And that's why sometimes if they do recognize that they have a problem and they want to fix it, they'll try and do it internally because they don't want to pay anyone to come in and fix it. And so those are the three things that have to be in place before I can actually come and assist.
Mm, so true.
Mhm.
So who were the leaders that you looked up to, that you modeled your leadership after?
So one leader, he's no longer with us. His name is Mark Harada. He was a great communicator. I remember him always pulling the team together and explaining the vision and then saying, hey, Vivian, you're in charge of this part. And then we would have meetings where he would check in with us to see how we were doing and to see if we needed assistance. And if you were stuck, he could get you unstuck, but you had to make sure that there was open communication. No hiding the issue. I'm just going to sit here and struggle and figure it out because he was always there to check in with you. A lot of times you're given your assignments and you rarely talk to your manager. Your manager doesn't come over and check on you, or it's great if they say good morning and good night, but how about a team huddle first thing in the morning? How's everybody doing today? All right, so this is our goal for today, or this is our intention for today. Just inspire people to get started with their day and making sure that you're saying, good evening, hope you had a great day. Remember, if you get stuck on anything, just let me know. Or really going out and checking on them midday. Temperature check. How's it going? Everything going well today? Simple things like that will go so far, as opposed to maybe just a good morning and not speaking to the person at all unless they come to your office with a question or a problem. It's amazing. And when I go into different companies, when I hold a training and I'm sharing information and they start asking questions and telling me about problems, I know automatically that their managers don't check in with them. And this is their first time being heard. Communication is key. And so one of my leaders, great communicator, full of support, whatever we needed. If there was a problem and you had to stay late, he would stay late with you and you guys were figuring it out. Just great, positive, supportive energy. It was wonderful.
That's so great that you had a leader to model after who was so great. If someone has just been promoted to a leadership role from being an employee, or someone is a manager or some type of leader that knows they're struggling somehow and kind of wants to make a change but doesn't have the organizational support and wants to model themselves after someone that you just described, is there anyone that you know of that you could say, hey, go watch this person. They have a great leadership style. You can start learning from them.
There are two books that I would recommend. Good to Great. And I'll tell you, the entire book is great, but you know how you have your best takeaways from a book? Two of my takeaways from the book was, if our company is a bus and we're all in our seat on the bus and somebody's not performing to their best, it doesn't necessarily mean kick them off the bus, right? Separate from them. It might mean that they're just not in the right seat on the bus. And if you just move them into another seat, they will flourish. And I've seen it happen in companies. A person was really bored in this job. They interviewed for a position here. And then everyone's like, oh my goodness, I'm so disappointed that person isn't doing well at all. And it's like, yeah, but we saw such great qualities in that person. Did you ever stop to think that maybe this just isn't the position for this person? You know what? Let's move this person into another position. And they flourished. They were outstanding. So that was one of my takeaways. The person just may not be in the right seat on the bus. And then the other thing, one of the examples in the book was, there was a sales team and a top seller. And the company loved this person because they sold so much. But this top seller was horrible to everyone else on the team. And it was bringing down the rest of the team. And the question, I think, in the book was, what do you do with this person? And the answer was, you get rid of the person. Doesn't matter that they're the top seller. Once you get rid of them, the rest of the people on the team will rise and they'll do great work. I was at a company where the person actually had that attitude. They're not going to get rid of me. I bring in all the money here. But they terrorized the other people in the department. It was horrible. And I watched it and I tried to work with the person. And then while I was having a one-to-one in the person's office, they received a call. And the person actually said, watch this, and like just ripped the person on the phone. And when the person got off the phone, I said, well, do you think that maybe there was another way to communicate like what you were trying to say or what you really needed that person to do? These people here, they're so stupid. They don't listen. You just gotta tell them what you need. That was the person's attitude. And so, of course, in your earlier question, I saw that this person wasn't about changing. It was about, I'm right. This is how you lead. This is how I talk to people under me. Right. And so I spoke with HR and the lead of the company. And I said, you have an issue here. And that's what I had said to them. Have you ever read Good to Great? Right? They had not read the book. And I said, but do you understand that everybody is cowarding down and they're not doing their best? And they're watching that you're letting this person treat everyone this way. They're observing everything. And while I was there consulting, this person took it too far and they ended up suspending the person, and then everybody else rose. And it was amazing. So Good to Great is an absolutely fabulous book. The other book, might I add, is my book. And it's called Lead Effectively. And it's 20 Ways to Building a Stronger Team. And that one's by Vivian Campbell. And
I love that you have a book, because I was thinking about asking you, do you have a book?
there are 20 different chapters. So there's a chapter on different things that you should know for being an effective leader. There's case studies, and then there's also exercises that you can do with your team. So
I love that.
it's a nice
And
book
where can
for
they get your book? From your website? From Amazon?
they can get it from Amazon. Absolutely. So
All
it's
right.
How to Lead Effectively, 20 Ways to Building a Stronger Team. Hmm?
That is excellent.
Yes, yes. I just think the more information that we share with each other, helping each other, supporting each other, the better we will all be. That's just how I feel. And
Yeah.
so whenever I walk into a company, it's all about, I'm here to help you. Tell me what you need. How can I help? That's how I approach every person when I get brought in to a company.
That is great. What was one of your greatest leadership challenges, and how did you overcome it?
I think for me, it took me a good minute to learn this, that even though my work ethic, which I think is great, I assumed everybody else's work ethic should be exactly the same. And I think that's where I got into trouble, because everybody's different. And just because I'm willing to stay late, work hard, find things outside the company to enhance whatever it is I'm doing, that doesn't mean everybody else is willing to do that. Or I can be given an assignment and I need little to no supervision. Like, I'll just get it done. I'll figure it out and I'll make it happen. And so when I became the manager, it was like, here's your assignment, go get it done. Everybody's not like that. And so the biggest challenge for me was learning that everybody isn't like me. Like, they don't have my work ethic, or they might need help. And it's also through my learning, some people need you to demonstrate it. Some people can just hear it once. Some people need to do it a couple of times before they get it. Just understanding that people learn differently and accepting that for what it is. And there's nothing wrong with it. We're just all different. And so once I learned that, then I was good.
I would also be curious what your thoughts are, because yes, work ethic is important. And like you said, you go above and beyond, where you work longer hours, you research after. But I know if you own a business and you're
Mhm.
paying someone to work a certain number of hours, you don't want to pay them to search their social media
Right, right.
or talk on the phone with their
Mhm.
boyfriend or their spouse or anything like that. So there has to be a minimum level of work ethic to
Mhm.
keep the person on, because you're paying them to do a job. And so you expect them to do it.
Absolutely. And you need to inspect what you're expecting, and you need to check in with people. And so when someone comes to work, whether it be an hourly position or a salary position, you cannot just say hello to them in the morning and then you're done with them. And if you run into them, you say, "Hey, what's going on?" That's where I believe morning team huddles are great. You're greeting everyone. You want to give them an intention for the day, let them know what the goal was, like how we did yesterday, what we're focused on today. I think that's important, just communicating and then getting up and checking in with them throughout the day. It's not somebody has come in, they're working, and you're off doing your managerial reports and meetings and all of that. You're actually working with your team. That is so important. Team collaboration is huge. There's so many things to be a leadership, and I've only given you 20 in my book, but they're all important. I couldn't tell you that communication isn't more important than collaboration. I can probably tell you an order to start with, but you're just building a foundation and you're just building upon it with another skill. Often when I go in, whether I'm doing customer service training, leadership training, we start with something for 1 week, and I'm a firm believer that the mother of all learning is repetition. And so you're going to do it every day that week. And then the next week, we're going to give you a new skill. And it doesn't mean you stop doing the first skill. It just means now you have two skills that you're working with. And now you need to keep repeating that all week. The more you do it, it will become a habit. And now you're on your way to being a great employee, a great manager, a great leader. A lot of companies feel like, oh, we'll call Vivian in, she'll come in and she'll train, and now we're good to go. And it's like, okay, so who on your team is following up with them and holding them accountable and making sure that they're still doing it a week later, 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later? And I'm not saying that someone needs to have me on staff year round, but you might want to bring me in quarterly to do a check-in. And depending upon what program or how long you work with me, somebody still has to keep the group going. And a lot of people feel, yeah, we did that training last year, so we're good, right? We're good for like a whole year, maybe 2 years. It depends. What are your managers doing to make sure that they're still doing it? And so sometimes I'll get called in for like customer service training, and I'll come in, and then a week later I'll follow up and say, so tell me, how's it going? How was the week? Because people will remember me. I'm very engaging and we have fun in the trainings. And so you'll probably remember me. And I'm always asking, so what are you going to go and do on your very next shift, on your very next day? And everybody will stand up and say their name and say what they're going to do. And that's great. They might do it for a week. But if there's no one to keep it going, then they're just going to do it for a week. And then there'll be a few that'll keep it going because they want to grow. But the majority of them, it'll fizzle out unless somebody keeps the momentum. And that's what the leader is there for.
So if people want to hire you to come into their company and help them their company out, where do they go to find you?
They can just go to Vivian Campbell Consulting, and all they have to do is put their name and number in and hit call me, Vivian, and I will give them a call. Super simple. And I will absolutely sit with someone for an hour, up to 2 hours, and just really understand what's going on in their organization. I never come in and say, we're going to do A, B, C, and D, and you're going to be good. I need to know what's happening in your organization so that I can then best guide you and offer what I feel you need based on what you shared with me.
I always love leaving people with a call to action. And I also love trying to inspire leadership in each person, whether you're an employee, whether or not you're even working, we can all take on a better leadership role in our own lives.
I like that saying.
Do you have a call to action you can give to people about how to start practicing leadership in their own lives?
Sure. If anyone goes to my website, you'll see my tagline is to empower your mindset, lead with confidence, and collaborate for success. So start each morning with an intention or a goal. And throughout the day, repeat powerful affirmations. We need to work on the mindset first. We need to make sure that we're positive and we want to move forward. So empowering your mindset. Second, lead with confidence. For leaders, practice making quick, informed decisions that reflect their vision and their value with their team. So lead with confidence and get your team to see that you really are a leader. And then lastly, we want them to collaborate for success. So schedule regular check-ins to align everyone's efforts and celebrate collective wins. So when I gave you that example, when my boss had called us all in and he gave us our different parts of the project, if one of us completed just a small part, it was a win that we all celebrated, right? That's encouraging and uplifting. And then soon after that, then you have another person celebrating a small win on their part of the project. And it just gets the momentum going. So I believe collaborating for success and celebrating every win, it doesn't matter how big or small, but to celebrate it as a team.
That is great advice. Thanks for coming on the show. I really appreciate you.
Thank you for having me. It was a lot of fun.
All right. Thanks for listening. And I hope you really enjoyed today's episode. I would love it if you clicked like or subscribe and even share this episode with someone else that you think might enjoy it. Have a great day.